So talk about that relationship
Yeah.
though, because I think that's a bigger concept. Is there's a back end and a front end.
Yeah.
Talk about that relationship.
If you showed up and said, hey, I want to build I've got a house today and I would like you to build me a 70-story building, but I want to use the foundation from my existing house. You'd be like, that doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
And if you look at the industry, you'd be like, hey, I gotta blow away your foundation. I gotta dig, stories down to go stories up and rebuild the foundation. If you look at the IT industry and where it came from and what it was for, it started more than 45 years ago now, and it was designed to sell product only. And back then, a product was just a box, literally with everything in it. And so it was designed to move that. And so you look at a lot of the big distributors, you look at a lot of the companies and the software that existed, it was designed to essentially push boxes. That's really what we did back then, or what the channel did back then. I wasn't around back then, but the channel was around back then.
Right.
Now, as the channel evolved, you ended up with hardware and you ended up with licensing. And that was the first kind of like broke the system. How do I track all licenses? And then I added services because customer wanted services. Then we added apps. Then we added internet. And all that is their own essentially systems running on the back end. And to make it even worse, the customer's saying, I don't even want any of these visual components anymore. I want to buy all of it. And I want you to give it to me as a utility. And so like the systems that are designed in the industry, that's essentially the plumbing, are entirely broken when you look at how the customers want to consume. This is why AWS came out of nowhere and was able to disrupt the entire industry, because they built these back-end systems that were able to essentially revolutionize how people could consume on the front end. And that functionality does not exist for almost all the VARs and all the MSPs in the channel. And so what you end up with is you go and say, hey, Mr. MSP, what's your customer experience look like? And they're like, well, I've got a support portal, and then I've got an invoicing portal, and then I've got maybe I have messaging, maybe I don't, most of them don't. And these things are all just literally fragmented systems where they put a front end on one thing or the other. And so some of them are really good at selling hardware as an example, but they have no service interface. Some of them can do services because they built something on top of the PSA, but they can't do
So the customer has to log into like multiple,
Yes.
if they log in at all.
If the customer logs in at all, because the customer is most likely to not log in to your piece of shit, 6 portals, right? They're not going to do that, right? They're going to go, what is this crap? So what's so funny is there's this just complete disconnect between what does the customer want versus what the channel has the capability to deliver. And what the customer wants is what I get everywhere else. I order my toilet paper. I know in a 2-hour window it's going to show up to my house. I haven't finished all my Christmas shopping yet, but I can get it all by Sunday, right? Right. All that stuff, that's what they expect. I order a sandwich and I can literally watch the car drive to my house, okay? Meanwhile, the technology industry that is selling technology for a living, that is providing all the connective tools to Amazon and all these different companies, doesn't have its own infrastructure connected. And so I can go order $1 million in infrastructure from a $200 million VAR or MSP, and they can't even tell me where my tracking is on my pallets of stuff. It's just absolutely, it's hilarious.
And the infrastructure exists though. I mean, APIs have been around. So why isn't more stuff connected?
Well, I would argue that actually a lot of the APIs, so if you look at the industry, and this is a pet peeve of mine, the industry's been selling networking and all these things, and we were really good at focusing on the APIs that were centered around product. And so if I want to integrate with firewall, with a switch or whatever, generally I can connect those things together in some sort of management console or whatever. Specifically, it's with one brand, but certainly even across brands. And so really the focus has been on that product integration, right? When I'm going out to the site, I can integrate all this crap together. And that's really, really good and necessary. What was missed by everyone is, what about the integration of the business side? What about how I provide the network? What about integrating all of that? Like even support renewals and all that stuff. There's not even APIs for a lot of these things yet. They're just building that. And so what the IT channel is doing, and a lot of the big distributors have really just gotten all over this, which is really, really great for everybody, is they're building essentially what their own platform, and it's a distribution platform. And they're turning on all these things as services on APIs. But this isn't something that's been around for 20 years. This is relatively new, where they're turning on a lot of these things. Now, they existed for the really big VARs, but that functionality has to exist essentially for everybody else in the industry.
And so these disconnected systems that obviously we had to deal with the same thing. We ended up building our own software.
Yeah.
And just to kind of unpack the problem and what that was doing.
Yeah.
Like how long, like what was it doing to our sales process?
Yeah.
Like how long did it take us to build quotes and then respond and make changes? And
yeah,
because I think some of the disconnection is, it really hits the day to day.
Yeah. So if you really take if you look at running an MSP or VAR, if you look at running the business and you go, what's the source of the work? Like what's taking us so long? And you get into a process like sales quoting, and you get into it and you start mapping it out, and you start just marking all the things that are manual. Oh, I got to go to the distributor or the partner and get a quote. What format are they sending that to me? Oh, they're sending it to me in PDF. Okay. Well, that means that my team has to take the PDF, look at it with your eyes, and hand key it into your quoting system if you have that. But a lot of times the quoting system is a spreadsheet. And then the spreadsheet gets sent to the customer in some sort of quoting format. And then the customer sends a PO. And what format is that in? Oh, that's in a PDF from the customer. And then that PDF is getting forwarded. And it's just like this manual crap, place to place. And so the source of a lot of the work is actually all the manual entry between all these different systems, which is it's insanity. That these things aren't connected together. Why am I not directly connected with my partner? And so because they're using Salesforce, why wouldn't I just directly connect and get my pricing in real time? And then why wouldn't I be able to provide it to my customer in real time? And so we've got to invest in what I call this API infrastructure around the business of running these companies. And what we have to do is we have to say, what are we required to provide the customer? And that's really, really important. If we don't solve this problem, we're all going to get our asses handed to us. So it's really important that we solve this problem, because Amazon's going to if we don't. This is the reality. So we have to look at what does the customer need and require, and then we have to go all the way back through all the manual workflows and say each one of these things must be a microservice that's turned on that digitizes what the customer wants to do on the front end. So when they want to buy something, that entire process must be digitized. When they want support, that entire process must be digitized.